So it's a pleasure for me today to introduce our booth event with three of members of SIFI Advisory Board. The aim of this meeting is to talk about ESCRS Functional Classification intraocular lenses for SIFI. And it's a pleasure for me to introduce, first of all, Professor Filomena Ribeiro, Chair of the Ophthalmology Department of Hospital da Luz, Lisbon, and Professor of Ophthalmology of Biomedical Engineering at University of Lisbon and President of ESCRS. Beatrice Cochener, Head of Ophthalmology Department, Brest University Hospital in France. Thank you for coming. And Professor Rita Mencucci, that works Professor of Eye Clinic, Department of Ophthalmology, and Professor at School of Ophthalmology at University of Florence. So, thank you for coming, and I leave the floor to Professor Ribeiro. Thank you.
Are you listening? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. It's beautiful to see you all there. So, we'll start with my presentation. This is the topic for today's booth talk. So, we are talking about functional vision and how to decode the SIFI IOLs. And I like this name, Woman Shapes the Future of Vision. And we have here my two good friends to help me with this task. So I will talk you about the functional classification for simultaneous vision that ESCRS has launched. Is right now in our website, but was published on the GCRS journal. You go, it's free. You can all get this classification. And why do we really need this kind of classifications? Because we need to have a global consensus between all of us, industry, doctors, patients, and we need to know how to address what outcome the patients can expect. Expectations is a main thing in this field. So we need to have evidence-based outcome that can provide a way to classify the IOLs in order for us to set the expectations to our patients. To have good evidence-based, what we really need is to standardize the way we report the outcomes. And that is something that also in ESCRS, we publish on GCRS how to report the outcomes when we are doing clinical studies with these IOLs. And that is right now mandatory for us to have good evidence base, to talk in a common language with collaboration between all of us. It's good to know that industry is now collaborating with us on this regard. We were together in Rome in this consensus to the IOL portfolio from SIFI to try to address the classification with this portfolio. It was a very nice advisory board with all these experts from all over Europe. And the main goals was to try to align the evidence-based classification with the SIFI's IOL portfolio. So we'll see after how this can be aligned with the portfolio from SIFI. So I intend to talk about the impact that this can take also for regulatory issues. And when we talk about regulatory issues, we talk about the standards defined by the ISO, which is the international standards to classify the IOLs. And we'll see what they have right now. They make a very basic classification. And this classification is a mixed concept classification. It's not functional, it's not by optical designs. The different categories can mix between them. So as you can see, we have the multifocal IOLs. They define it just like you see, can improve performance until near focal distance. Then they define the EDF, which is a short name for adults, defining by ANSI standards. The definition is exactly the same as ANSI. And then a third group that they call the full visual range. But if you see this last group and the multifocal, they are not exclusive. So it's very difficult, only with this classification, to have a real groups that are defined for each group. Here there is some mix for these two groups. Here you have also a classification that we have for ANSI. This classification is only for the what they call the EDOF IOLs. And as you can see, and you all know this classification, what they intend, this is functional. So if we have a functional definition of one of the groups that we have right now for IOLs, why not have a functional definition for all the IOLs? Not mix concepts for one optical definition, for other functional definition. So, as you can see, these are the definitions for simultaneous vision lens for the ISO criteria. The only two criteria is the correct distant vision and for the contrast sensitivity, for photopic contrast sensitivity. Here are these criteria, and I'm showing these because, as you can see, the metric defined is the 0.2 logMAR, and this is relevant for I'll show you the new classification that we are proposing. To have a good way to assess the IOL itself, it's fundamental that we do the defocus curve in monocular. In monoculars, we can define the performance of the IOL. In binocular, we are defining the outcome of a procedure, a cataract surgery bilateral with these IOLs, totally different. Depth of focus evaluation. So what I said before, we need to standardize, and I really recommend all of you to see the paper that was published in GCRS, because as you can see, different bodies, they define the way that we have to do the focus curve in different ways. So we need to organize ourselves, and we need to go to the standard for collecting. This is the paper that I mentioned to you, and this really right now is mandatory for us to follow these rules, to have a way how to compare the different IOLs that we have. So this is a summary of what I have said. Again, just look that all the metrics have defined the 0.2 logMAR. So now, this is the proposal of ESCRS, a truly classification based in real population outcomes. As you can see, two metrics were defined, the 0.2 logMAR for distance, and we'll have another metric, which is the shape of the focus curve. Here you can see one metric, and the other metric is the shape. And I'll show you better after how we define this shape. So what we mean with shape is this. We have in our classification, a very easy way to define two groups, partial and full. Easy. The definition, how we separe this, by the diopters that the focus curve achieves, less than 2.3 or more than 2.3. So we have two main groups. For the partial, then we can define, and I hope it's here, yes. So for the partial, then we have inside that group three subgroups, as you can see here. And the definition of these subgroups is by the range, again, of the defocus curve. The simple way to classify. For the full depth of field, you can see that the metrics for define the three subgroups is not based on the number of diopters of the focus curve, but you can see it here, but by the shape of the defocus curve. Why? We know that, for instance, this defocus curve provides 0.2 logMAR here, more than 2.3 diopters. So we know belongs to the group of the full depth of field. Now we need to see the shape of the focus curve. And as you can see, there is here an area that is below the 0.2 logMAR. Not always is above this 0.2. So this slab here is what we need to quantify to define if it is continuous, is always above 0.2. If it is, I cannot read here, steep, like this one, means that sometimes it's below, and we need to quantify this difference, okay? So is what these numbers here give us. So it's a very easy way to classify our IOLs. This last slide is only to show you the different proposals that we have right now, how they match between each other. But of course, if we want to really define the portfolio right now, using real outcomes in the real world, we need to go with the ESCRS Functional Classification. Thank you for your attention. And right now, Rita Mencucci will give the second talk. Thank you so much.
Thank you for the hard work already done by Filomena. These concepts are not so simple. So for me, an easy task today. Today will be to make an overview of the SIFI IOL and the clinical evidence that will be explained better by Professor Cochener, and the philosophy of the technological innovation. SIFI has really a proud history of innovation. It began in 2008 when the SIFI patented first wavefront-engineering technology that we'll see is the base of every product. In 2014, Mini-WELL IOL was launched, and it has been the first EDOF in the world, followed by the toric version in 2018. Then a different concept. Beginning from 2021, Mini-WELL PROXA launch was done in a very interesting new perspective. We'll see it. And finally, following the stream of enhanced monofocal IOLs, you know how important are they today, the EVOLUX was launched. And the last one was the launch of the Mini-WELL PROXA toric in 2024. But let's take briefly the Shua into consideration one by one. First of all, what lies at the heart of this innovation? At the heart of this innovation is a wavefront technology that is applied to the entire SIFI IOLs. Wavefront technology can precisely modulate and stretch the light like an elastic using spherical aberration. This is very important to ensure uninterrupted, continuous visual range. No rings, no diffractive design, very, very few halos or glare. But let's begin from MiniWell, the first EDOF launched in the world. The MiniWell Proston follow the wavefront technology, of course, in this non-diffractive design that allows 99.5% of light reaches the retina, so it's a big amount of light in a controlled spherical aberration modulation with different optical zones that works in synergy to provide an extended depth of focus, in the case of MiniWell of about 2 diopters. However, the lens is perfectly similar to a monofocal, so the peripheral zone is a monofocal simple. This can allow to have a very, very smooth extended depth of focus without gaps, and this is very important for our patients. So this is the MiniWell. The depth of field, try to remember this number. The depth of field of MiniWell is up to 40 centimeters. What does it mean, 40 centimeters? 40 centimeters is something more than an enhanced monofocal that is generally 60 centimeters. It's something less from a near vision IOL. So it is an intermediate distance, a very good intermediate distance that can help in almost every task during everyday life. So we can guarantee a continuous vision from distance to 40 centimeters, uninterrupted high quality of vision in all light conditions. This is not pupil dependent, even in the evening, even in the evening low incidence of halos and glare. The light is not divided, is continuous, so excellent contrast sensitivity, even in low condition, with a very fast and simple neural adaptation process. And you know that is important because every patient is different, so the neural adaptation is very important. This is the focus curve Filomena showed, and you can see these are several studies, and you see the results are more or less the same with this depth of focus that reach 2 diopters, so that means that one can read very well at 40 centimeters. But going on in 2021, WELL PROXA, a different concept with the same material and same philosophy. This is the real, because WELL PROXA was introduced to improve the near vision. We spoke about 40 centimeters. This is the near vision, and to increase the performance at 30-35 centimeters. That is a clear near vision. What is the secret of the WELL PROXA? The secret of the WELL PROXA, even though the material is the same, the philosophy is the same, is the different distribution between zones. You know, because the WELL, we have 3 optical zones active in the 3 millimeter central area. Remember, the periphery is a normal monofocal, differently from the PROXA, in which the zone active is larger, 4.5 millimeter, and this can allow to achieve a range of vision up to 30-35. As you can see how smoother is the curve. So that means that this lens can cover more distances than the one before. What is the next step? The next step, you have a program that is a fusion A fusion between the mini-well in our one eye, generally the dominant eye, and the mini-well proxa, so near vision, in non-dominant eye. And the idea is simple but very marvelous, in my opinion, because it can give really a smoothness of vision coming from the distance to the intermediate to the near without vision gaps. So a very interesting concept. It's different from a monovision. It's really a fusion. It is not a monovision. So this is the system, continuous focus, not light division. And see how different is, of course, in this case, the binocular, the focus curve is binocular because the system works on both eyes. See how smooth is the curve. And we can imagine that this system can really be good for a lot of patients that search a continuous vision from intermediate to near vision. Perhaps you know that I am a fan of the enhanced monofocal IOL. I believe in that because I work in a big public hospital, and so it is not possible sometimes to offer a high quality, very very sophisticated kind of lens, but we have to keep very very simple. And to have an enhanced monofocal eye EVOLUX is really a great path forward. The philosophy is the same, so wavefront technology, but the quantity of spherical aberration is different from mini-well and mini-well proxa. Thanks to this, we have the achieving of a range of field of about 1.5 diopters. That is the intermediate vision, stopped. You'll see that sometimes we have some kind of near vision, but what is guaranteed? It is guaranteed an intermediate vision. If you imagine, for example, I will speak like an Italian doctors, and for example, Italians are not good book readers. So you can think that to have a vision is good. 1 point diopter, that is the phone distance, more or less, so the tablet distance, could be really, in most cases, enough. I love this IOL, really. I love this IOL. I love the particularly, and I was to show in detail, which are particularly of the optic, with this particular finishment that is called optic tech, that allows not to stitch the optic on the optic, and you know that sometimes it happens. And so it is a good results in terms of a particular manufacturing of the IOL that is very, very well detailed, in my opinion. Also in this case, continuous high contrast sensitivity, a flawless distance vision acuity. You know, that is the first chapter in enhanced monofocal, to see well for distance, and this is real. I report to you the results briefly, because the details are up to Beatrice. The results of our last published study, a few months ago, in 2025, about our experience with the EVOLUX. And it is strange because this work, I like this work because it combines the clinical part from the experimental part, because we evaluated this lens also from the optical bench view. You know that sometimes there is some gap between studies and clinical, and really we find a common way in this paper, really. Here you can see the results. The comparison was done with a good monofocal IOL, simple monofocal IOL. But you see how the intermediate vision and, I told you, fine near vision are really important in this, using this IOL with a very, very nice defocus curve. patient does complain of anything, the vision is clear, they can clearly see distance, they can see clearly their tablet, their phone, maybe they need a glass for reading books at night, for example, reports. So, and our data are really in line with the other published on this. Very interesting. You have to note this. Very interesting. You all in the portfolio of SIFI. So, our story is complete now. You see that the portfolio is very complete, spanning from a standard monofocal that exists already before with mini-ready and mini-ready toric, and then with all these different kinds of wavefront technology. I like also this, they are based on the same philosophy. I don't like to mix and match different philosophies. So, in a real world, that really can confirm the success of this approach, uninterrupted, continuous range of vision with high quality vision and minimal side effect. Thank you very much.
So you're still with us? And I guess that maybe still confused by so many lenses, so many concepts, a new classification that apparently it's even more complicated than what we used to do. So let me just tell you why we went in that direction. Because actually what is truly coming from the guidelines, we discovered that if we are just focusing on an optical concept, we follow what is described here, and you see, okay, I'm going to put this lens at an enhanced monofocal, but maybe at the end of the day, you will discover that the performance on side of patient might be as good as any other more expensive EDOFs. And maybe some EDOFs will make the same good performance than some trifocals. So that's why we say, okay, let's put our shoes on the side of the patient. And so in saying that, it's how we decided to say, okay, let's focus more on how the patient feels. When we came to that stage, we discovered that looking again at the literature review, that there is only one parameter that is today comparable, is the defocus curve. Is it going to work? I got a great news. No. Because not all of you in the daily practice will do the defocus curve every day, monocularly. And as soon as you want to go to complementary optics, mix match, you will have any way to do the binocular one. So I think that definitely some other parameters will be integrated for our routine practice, like the quantification of dysphotopsia, quality of life, patient outcome. That's going to be the future. But the beauty of this classification, which has been introduced, we must congratulate SIFI, because now what we need is from the industry to try to share the black box and to say, okay, let's take a look in what we have in our, accurate data set, especially coming from the clinical trials, to see if that can be suitable to the new classification. So what SIFI is proposing you today is to say, okay, with Rita, we understood that there are some principal optical concepts quite clearly explained. We heard from Filomena that there is some ambition behind. And so thank you, SIFI, for trying to see if we can put in these new boxes your different lenses and if we are targeting what is expected. Because one day, we want to move from the optical benches to the reality, and we want to move to opinion to evidence-based. So, can I remember just what has been clearly explained by our president, the introduction of this cutoff, which is mostly based, as you understood, on the performance 0.2 as a cutoff for the visual performance, and on the shape on the defocus curve. So, as you can see here, we will define, depending on this shape, in which portion, in which category each lens can fit, and if it's really replying to the expectation coming from the optical concept. So there are some global consensus, as you will again find in this ESCRS paper. And so let's focus on this first category, partial range, not of focus anymore, of field. Because we are not talking anymore on specific distances, but a global shape so field of this defocus curve. So in saying partial range, spontaneously, you will try to converse and say, okay, what does that mean? I will put in that box potentially EDOF. More or less efficient for near, but certainly the EDOF category. And so we will certainly have something in partial, narrow, enhance, or extend, depending on the shape of it. So you've seen the narrow. Now the enhance will do a little bit better. And even more ambitious, this one, extended, that extend a little bit. And so you see that there are some nuances that will come from that. Maybe a nuance that can differentiate what we call enhanced, the lens that you love so much, which is really good for far, and give you some kind of extended depth of field. When on the other side, some other concepts still put today in the same category may do a little bit better for near, and so they may switch some of them from enhanced to extended. And maybe some of the very expensive lenses coming from different companies, I don't have any interest in any of them, will let you discover one day that they may be less efficient in some areas and some other that you are used to call and to put in the enhanced IOL category. So that's exactly what we want to do. But I mean, another big problem was faced when we started to say, okay, let's now look at the evidence or the defocus curve. What can we do with that? And actually, we had to face some level of evidence that was really different from one study to the other. It's what we call the level of certainty, which is a sort of grading of the quality of the evidence-based medicine that we can collect from that. And so, of course, there is no way to say, okay, forget about what we've done so far. Let's move to this crazy new classification, and we will have to conduct many prospective studies. The idea is not to, of course, to delay all the work, but to try to converse as a transition period before the new clinical trials will be set on these parameters. We want to try to just look on what we have today and to convert that in this new way of thinking about this categorization of the lenses. So what was done, and again, with the support of SIFI, is what you did with what you have, in your storage regarding your lenses, was to try to see what kind and which level of certainty we have for these lenses. And of course, it's all about the quality of publication that will be different from one maybe industry to the other. Different lenses are more reported than others. So what about, for instance, the level of evidence for the EVOLUX? So the EVOLUX, that is something of mini-EDOF. The EVOLUX actually, looking at the literature, as I will show you with the figures, with the numbers, actually is a partial ROF, so it's truly in this category, so category of partial range of field. And regarding the defocus curve, we look enhanced or maybe a little bit better extended. So we need certainly to get on a more precise way on that. And so it's how, and this work, the way of grading it, is coming from Joaquin Fernandez, is a key leader of this new classification. And so he suggested a way looking at the different data available for each lens to try to define if the quality that we have in our hands is good or not. And you can see here, and that's good for you, that the level of certainty that we have here is in the green zone. That means that you made a good job for publication. And so in saying that, we can perfectly consider that it deserves the label of partial range of field enhanced, which is the highest performance that you can get in this first arm. And basically, again, that will certainly put most of the so-called EDOF that we are using today. So good job. it's one of the very good performer in this range of partial range of field with high certainty, that means good level of proof. Well, what about the mini-well? So mini-well, you remember the first so-called leaders, combination of sphericity, that's the optical concept. What can we think about this lens? Well, again, in that regard, we can see that we're in between, and maybe the level of evidence, the number of publications, the quality of the parameters collected, maybe not as good, but might be good enough to put it as well in the partial range of field extended. So you remember, enhanced, extended means it's even better. Enhanced in the middle, and extended, it goes even better. The level of certainty is not as good. That means that we may need some new, I would say, multi-centered study, for instance, or we need to reinforce the collection of data to just increase the level of certainty and to make sure that we can put it in this category of partial range of field extended, which is the upper level for this first arm in partial range of field. And then after, we got, of course, the mini-well toric. And the mini-well toric, just go for some improvement that we all know. As soon as you go for and you target metropia, you increase your performance, whatever the distance actually, and that will bring you, of course, to something that will make the defocus curve even more continuous. And so in that regard, in terms of, I would say, certainty, you can see that, again, we can do better. And regarding toric lenses in general, we don't get so many good data at that time in the literature review. You know why? Because reporting on astigmatism is a very challenging question. You need to use vectorial analysis, changing of axes, rotation of lenses. So it's so difficult that there are not so many, I would say, users or researchers who like to publish on it. So that's why in terms of level of certainty, we can definitely do better. And it's going to be a mission for the future that we will have in our hands to say, okay, in top of the rest, in top of using the defocus curve, using the pupillometry, using the patient outcome, using the dysphotopsia grading, we will have certainly to do something for the toric and the correction of astigmatism, just leaving only the spherical equivalent or the patient happiness. So let's move now to the second arm, which is the full range of vision. Spontaneously, we would say, okay, that's in that category that we may put the diffractive lenses, the multifocal one, or maybe the most ambitious EDOF, because don't forget that some EDOF, they do have the same ambition than some trifocals, telling you that you're going to get the same, but maybe a better quality of vision. None of this defocus curve will tell you about the quality of vision, but at least will tell you how far we are going for recovering the good near vision. So what can we think about the portfolio of what we have with the SIFI? So just to go back for the full range, what we have here, it's again to just look at the defocus curve and to define some different categories in it, just looking at the shape of it. And it's how we go there and define, depending on its continuous, smooth. So we are looking for the slope of this defocus curve. It's continuous, but continuous with a differentiation of the shape. So in this full range of field, we have three new categories: the continuous one, the smooth transition, and the steep transition. So it's how it looks, and it's going to depend on the inflection points at the intermediate and near, and it's where, and it's on this specific area that we're going to focus. So can we think, for instance, that the WELL fusion will reply to the expectation, which would mean a full range of vision, but which shape? Should it be continuous? Should it be smooth? Of course, we wish the best to this lens. And we will have, of course, to get data on it, because you know that it's a brand new lens and it's in your hands now to try to add and definitely to focus on this monocular defocus curve in addition to all the other parameters. But we wish you, of course, the continuous, of course, category to make this lens providing happiness for the patient. So in other words, you see that if we try to transfer these lenses, going from the concept that was so well described by Rita, we can imagine that these lenses will go in the different categories, which means the mini-ready will go in the narrow one, which is, not that bad. You see that no ambition for near, but certainly good for vision according to the visual performance. And the EVOLUX will go for the partial range enhance. The mini-well toric will be a little bit more ambitious, getting and targeting the metropia, and will deserve this extend portion of the partial range. When the mini-well PROXA, especially in the toric version, and the mini-well fusion, the top level, will go to this continuous or maybe smooth transition. So to sum up, I think that we got there. I think that whatever the classification, SIFI offer a complete portfolio. If we look at the optical concept, we got all what we used to, label today: enhance, monofocal plus, EDOF, better EDOF, improve EDOF, and why not some mix match? But keep in mind that for this kind of strategy, if you say, okay, let's go and do some mini monovision in one eye and put one of these good partial range of field lengths, at that stage, we would need to add the binocular defocus in top of this monocular defocus curve. And that's why today, most of the literature review that you may go through, you will discover that we are mostly using the binocular defocus curve that brings the certainty of the data, not at the good level that we are looking for. But we are just opening a new era, an era for you guys to hopefully try to understand better what we can target. And you know what we can target? It's only on the side of the patient. We want to make patient happy, to sleep well on our side, and not to do a brainstorming on optical concept. We want to achieve what we can promise. And so I think that on the side of the industry, they need to embrace this ambition. And as soon as we will set a new clinical trial, we will change the parameters according to that. So I think that the next consideration of other endpoint, So I think that I don't want to go through all of that. I think that I gave you hopefully some practical message. And again, to consider that it's an early beginning of the classification. If you ask me, I'm part of the group. And I say that in the microphone. If you ask me if it's functional, as a functional classification, at that stage, not strong enough, not enlarged enough, but it's a good beginning to work on the same way all over the world to provide good evidence base and to be allowed finally to know exactly what we are doing and what we can collect. Speaking about the gray zone, that was my favorite topic of this morning. We do have many gray zones. And so we need to live from the expert opinion. You know what means expert opinion? I put 100 lenses, my patients are very happy. It's what we call opinion. So we need now to move forward and to get figures on that. Okay, so that's it. Thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the day.